What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Eddie Hearn. Anthony Joshua, get this. Anthony Joshua felt confused ahead of his first boxing fight against Alexander Usyk, claims Eddie has too many voices in his corner as he hints he made a mistake by firing Rob the Tutor McCracken. And he goes on in depth, Eddie Hearn, to say, I remember when he was warming up for the fight and he had a pad of notes that he and his team had put together. He would be hitting the pads, and every now and again, he would go over and look at the book. Joshua reacted to that defeat by getting rid of Rob McCracken, who had guided him to Olympic gold in 2012. And then on to world honors as a professional. Fernandez stayed on board with American trainer Robert Garcia, brought in to prepare Joshua for the rematch. In their second meeting, Joshua put in a much improved performance, but he still fell short as he lost a split decision. He is now looking for a new team ahead of his return to the ring in 2023, and Hearn has admitted that having too many voices in his corner has hindered Joshua. He said, the best AJ wins, said Eddie Hearn. I know exactly what I'm doing, but to do that, you need a tutor, Hearn continued. That's why Rob McCracken was so important for him. Remember when he boxed Vladimir Klitschko, Rob McCracken was a big part of that win. And fight in 5 in round 6. As a fighter, you have to be able to look into a trainer's eyes and say, I'm in trouble here. Tell me what I need to do, not to go back to your corner and have 5 or 6 voices telling you what to do. Those are the words of Eddie Hearn. And let me counterpunch. I think perception is everything, right? I think the first fight, because this covers both fights, okay? The first fight, Anthony Joshua was just confused, okay? He didn't know really what to do, and it showed you how detached he was, or he had became, with Rob McCracken. Now, I know what Eddie mentioned about the world titles, the IBF first, the IBF first, then the WBA, then the WBO, okay? All of those were with McCracken. And Olympic gold, of course, at the Olympics. And we know that. But at some point, people, Rob McCracken and Anthony Joshua, I think, became in autopilot mode. I think Rob was doing other things. I mentioned that in my live last night. Shout out for the people that saw it. And I think Rob McCracken just had too many things going on at the time. You know, he was still ahead of the GB Olympic team, amateur team. He was still doing that at the same time. And mostly he was with Angel Fernandez. And I think why he decided to keep Fernandez on. But back to perception, okay? You got a guy like Usyk. Who is it really to bring in to fight like him? I mean, besides a smaller guy, a smaller, quicker guy. And Usyk does a lot of things that's unorthodox. He hits you from certain angles. It's hard to prepare for that. The only thing that you can do is do the best that you can do with what you got. Okay? And the perception part is, I want people to listen to me. If Joshua would have won that match, Rob McCracken would have still been there. I think only when that decision was called and you seen Anthony Joshua I think only when that decision was called and you seen Anthony Joshua, look like, what the hell is this? How did I lose a decision in Hotspur Stadium in my country to a foreigner? That's the look that he gave everybody. Okay, so he gave everybody that look, and he was just dumbfounded. Then all the changes were made. Then, oh, it was this Rob McCracken, and hey, you got to ask my team. There was no game plan. You got to, all that stuff. So, a lot of things came out after the fact, and then that's what happens when someone loses because people are scrambling around for explanations. Okay, and I think that Anthony Joshua just didn't know how to beat the guy because no one really sat down with him. Maybe Angel Fernandez, but I think Angel Fernandez's role was to do what he always did. Help with certain combinations, work on certain things, but game plans weren't one of them. And I think Rob McCracken was too busy to work on one because Joshua was already so good at doing the things that they worked on, him and Angel, that they really didn't need a game plan. It's just certain things were going to fall into place. You would catch the guy with a big shot, then you would work on getting him out of there because Joshua is a good finisher, okay? So I think that's what they relied on. And then when they got in there with somebody that was challenging them, I think that was the problem. Because you couldn't hurt Alexander Usyk. There was no point in that fight where Joshua just hurt him to the point where it was go get him time. It wasn't like that at all. It was a back and forth standoff fight where the smaller guy was not only outboxing the bigger guy, but he was out hustling and landing the bigger shots against the bigger guy. Okay? And they didn't really know what to deal with it. And slowly and little by little, Usyk came on, but that's what Usyk does. Okay? If you fight Usyk, you're going to have to be ready to come on in the last part of that fight, but don't let him take off with the first beginning of that fight because he will. And what surprised me about Usyk is he started so fast. Normally Usyk, just like in the Tony Bellew fight, didn't really start that fast. He kind of waited to see what Tony Bellew had in his tank, let him shoot his wad, and then he got him. Okay? And then knocked him out in the 8th round. But that's after Tony Bellew was spent. Okay? And then that's when Usyk was starting to land those shots. He started to adjust his punch placement. Then he started landing. And with Joshua, he couldn't miss him. And Joshua really didn't have the game plan. And you could see how unattached that they were. They were telling him brilliant. They were telling him good job. They were telling him a lot of things like that, up and down, doing all this, that, and the other. But they didn't tell him particular things to do. Okay? So they didn't tell him particular things to do. So I think at the end of the day, he just didn't know. But perception is the big thing that we must be reminded of, because if it wasn't for the losses, the L's that he took, there would be no changes to any team. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Eddie Hearn claiming that Anthony Joshua shouldn't have got rid of Rob McCracken, his tutor. I will leave a live poll on so you guys can vote on, was that the right thing to do to bring in Robert Garcia, or to keep Rob McCracken? You guys tell me. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.